What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to the Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian podcast feed. I am your host, born again Survivor superfan, Jacob Hollaball, and with me, as he is every week, although this week he has to be a really good friend and console me because I don't want to be doing this podcast and I'm kind of doing it under protest. F. Bruce, we'll start there. Tony Lance, the great and wonderful Tony Lance. How are you doing? I assume at least better than me. And probably better than you were doing last week, right? Hopefully.
Yes, I'm feeling better. I'm more among the living than I was, which is fantastic. I'm equally sad that Kellie was gone because she was my number 2 pick for my winner pick at the very beginning, and I've been rooting for her the whole time, as well as a few others. But yeah, this one, the last 2 have hurt a lot.
This is this could very well turn out to be the Ponderosa I most would want to hang out at, which is would probably be for real Survivor super fans out there. It would be a pretty in-depth, crazy super fan question to ask. What Ponderosa do you wish you could hang out at? Basically, which jury do you wish you could hang out with in the islands of Fiji? But so far, if it was just with these two, I would have the time of my best vacation ever. So sign me up to hang out with Kellie and Caleb. And as much as, Caleb had a little bit of a soft spot for Kellie, I'm sure he is probably thrilled, or, in the moment when this was actually happening, was probably thrilled that didn't come to fruition what I predicted and wished for, of Bruce walking through that door and him having to spend time with father figure Bruce for a few days solo. And instead he gets to hang out with Kellie, who's cool and amazing, as is Caleb. So yeah, we're here to talk about Survivor 45 and Kellie going home and how much bullshit that it is. We're going to get to all of that, of course, everything that goes down in our first true merge episode. The Survivor auction is back, all kinds of things going on, lots to discuss. Before we do, quick programming reminders. B-Fank over in Challenge World continues. We're into the chaos section of the game, which before we started recording, Tony and I were sharing some negative feelings about that you may or may not be able to hear on podcasts such as this one that you're listening to and or the Challenge fandom. So if you want our opinions about how things are going there, go check those out. My recap of this week's episode is up. It'll be the previous one in this feed. Tony will be recording later this evening his recap on Challenge fandom. So by the time this episode's out, that one may be out shortly after it, probably within the same day. And otherwise, any other big, we had the Desi interview a week or two ago. Tony, any other interviews or anything coming up other than just recaps of good old B-Fank?
Pretty much recaps. I do want to apologize to Katie, who I called Melissa last episode. She was our fan that jumped on last week. I don't know why I had Melissa in my head, but in my head she was definitely Melissa. In fact, in actuality, she is definitely Katie. So
well, the good news is, Katie, that now you get mentioned in 2 episodes instead of 1. So exactly. There is a silver lining to us effing up names of people. So
it's true.
Thank you for listening and writing in and everything you do in life, Katie. You're a wonderful human being and we love you.
Yeah, we appreciate you immensely. And the other thing, not related to Challenge fandom, but I did want to tell you something that you may appreciate. As the sole member of the Fessy fan club, Caleb actually
sole member. Excuse me. I believe Desi Williams is now a part of my.
That's true, and I did tell you.
I haven't listened to the interview yet, but I did see that you guys made the mistake of posting it on the interwebs, and so I've at least got her. Which, do I need anyone else other than Desi? That's verifies true. The fan club by far.
And I did tell you I think in red that I was a begrudging member as well.
Yeah, there's lots of members. Just we don't
talk about it.
Most people hide it. They're not out and proud the way I am. But there's people come to the meetings. We have a good time.
Caleb referred to Bruce attacking his own alliance before the other castaways as fessying the situation, which I thought was a nice little button on the top there.
Caleb said that?
He did in one of his exit press.
Oh, Caleb. I mean, I appreciate the reference, and obviously, I mean, Fessy's just top of mind with everyone. However you feel about him, he's top of mind, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what makes him an amazing cast member. That's my entire argument. But you do, this podcast just somehow got worse because Bruce and Fessy in the same. I just can't do it. I don't
But
know. We
see,
might have to stop this podcast and start again in like 20 minutes. I can't. That's not
after
okay.
you've decompressed, well, I mean, this
That's
means at least that Caleb watches the challenge, which means that we could see Caleb on the challenge.
we need Caleb in the challenge house now. Can he be a
Yeah.
mercenary on B-Fank? Is there still time?
Yes.
Have they already filmed it all? Is it already done? Yeah, Caleb better be on the challenge. And maybe at the end of this podcast, which we are going to talk about Survivor here, it's going to happen. And maybe at the very end, we will do, because we surprisingly haven't all season. I've composed myself and
Yeah.
haven't done the I want to see this person on the challenge ranking. So maybe we'll hit that at the very end, but Caleb will certainly be high among it. As for the agenda for the episode, we will hit, we'll walk through the episode, hit all the important storylines and beats as always. Then we'll hand out some awards, hit our power rankings, which we're doing full 9. I don't know if you saw that in the outline, Tony, but no more top 5 bullshit around here. We're going top 9, 1 through 9, putting everyone in a spot, making it difficult on ourselves. So awards, power rankings. And at the very end, I have a question and a theory and a season idea to pose to Tony, which, spoiler alert, is just me posing as many ways as possible for them to invite Kellie back on. So yeah, let's dive into this horrible, tragic episode of Survivor. So we're back at Dakuwaka, night 14. And I was actually confused by the literal opening seconds of the show, because I remember that they're obviously coming back separate from each other, but at first it seemed like we were picking up once they were all back, and then I realized they weren't all back yet. So I was a little disoriented at first. But the first tribe comes back. They're wondering what has happened. Drew is upset about Bruce getting symbolic victory. I was upset as well.
Same.
And then some things occur, and basically the main things worth discussing are, first and foremost, Jake takes center stage for sure of the episode. He first gets talked to by Bruce, because it's not a conversation. He is talked to by Bruce and told how bad of a job he has done and how he has hurt Bruce and hurt Bruce's game and everything else. And he just has to sit there and listen.
Being an emotional player, something that Bruce is totally not.
Yeah, completely not. Doesn't have emotional feelings at all about jealousy or any of those things. And then Jake then follows that up by having a rather fun chat with Julie that I really, really enjoyed. So anything stand out to you, or which chat of Jake's did you have more enjoyment watching and or find more interesting for what eventually takes place in the game?
I would rank it as Julie and Jake conversation, Jake's confessional, and then conversation with Bruce. I don't know, for those of you who are not watching video, my hand has lowered beyond the frame for the third option. I mean, like, the conversation between Julie and Caleb was great. I really liked his point of, it was more of a how can I get Caleb to stay than an I want Julie to go, which is worth mentioning. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that he voted for Julie. I was surprised that she was surprised that she got a vote beyond Caleb's. Like, I thought that it was fairly evident that they were together. So that confessional kind of threw me a bit, but I really liked Jake's confessional about how I'm really stuck Survivor right now, and I would like to not be sucking as much from here on out.
That was the first of there was a lot of good quotes, and I took much better notes this time than I had been doing in previous ones. So I had a lot of quotes to come for the award section. That was the first one, or actually it was the second one, but they came kind of right back to back that I had written down. Yeah, him and Julie's chat is really fun. They both approach it the right way. Julie is like not being mad or upset, and like not even like faking it. She's like actually like kind of not, which there's times when you can just not be that upset about a name when it doesn't end up, costing you the game or anything. So I think she handles it expertly. I do like that he frames it. That's very smart to frame. This wasn't like, I need Julie out of the game. This was, I've decided to try to help Caleb save himself, and you became the target. And, he doesn't say, but it's kind of implied that like, maybe D would have been, but she was safe. And so like, you were the next up on the other side from Caleb. So love that. Don't love we're going to talk about Bruce a lot, so I'll save the thoughts because they're reoccurring thoughts, but I just don't understand his tactics at all
Yeah,
in
I
just
think
telling people like this is how everything's going to be and this is how things are and this is the game we're playing, and obviously he's going to win the game because he's just like laying out exactly what everyone should and should not be doing. um it's very strange, but yeah, I don't know why he's so upset. It's a good thing. It's honestly a good thing for him. And I don't think
yeah.
he realizes that. Like you're you're a new target has been built of the group that you're a part of, where you were previously and still currently possibly the biggest target, but now like one of them, when they were left out on their own, like made a bigger target of themselves. You should be actually kind of okay with this ultimately. But he's
Now,
not. Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
thought of something. The contrast could be that by Jake voting with Caleb, that made it so that Katura actually becomes a more viable option for Reba because she voted with them without prior discussion. And a plus for Katura seems to be a negative for Bruce in and vice versa. That seems to be the only way that this game is played between the two of them. But the the other thing that I found really interesting was when Julie said that she felt that it was clear that the lines have been drawn and it has gone to old Bello versus old Reba. And I didn't realize that that was ever not the line. Those were ever not the lines that were drawn. I thought that it was like, again, it's an edit, but I thought that it was fairly evident that it was these two tribes, and then Lulu in the middle, kind of one on each side.
I think that's just referencing that like it was that, but then it became for two votes in a row, like we got to get Caleb out of here. And he's,
Right.
not a part of that and was kind of trying to play both sides of that. And so I think that's mostly just referring to, well, we got the
Makes
one guy
sense.
out and none of
Yeah.
us, for some reason, none of us are going to pay attention to the fact that Emily's going to win. And so whatever, we'll talk more about her later, but she's going to win. The boat arrives then and announces that the auction's happening. And before the auction can happen, though, a scramble for the money ensues, in which most everyone does a decent job. It's randomized. There's, I think he says 40 pieces,
40 tubes, yeah.
40 tubes of bamboo. They all have random amounts that seem to be somewhere between 60 at the lowest maybe, and 200 at the highest possible in any given tube, but most of them seem to be within pretty in that 120-ish category. And everyone does a great job except for Bruce, who decides that he can just walk the whole time. The guy that yells at everyone to work hard and to do all the stuff just walks the whole time and ends up with one lowly tube at the end. D ends up with the most tubes and then also the most money, and everyone else ends up kind of in the middle. What were your thoughts on this portion of, we'll move to the actual auction itself in a
Yeah.
minute, but on the new setup for it of the scramble for money and having to basically do a physical challenge of sorts to get money and to get pole position and everything that came with the beginning here.
Yeah, I actually really liked this addition to the auction. I like that it's up to you to get the money. Like, it's up to you and up to your hustle to get the most money and have the most play at the auction. Because normally it's everybody gets $500 and then like you just do the auction. So I really liked this element. I felt that Bruce was doing the thing that you see a lot where I'm not going to try because I know that I'm not going to do as well as others. So if I don't try and then I don't do well, then I wasn't trying anyway. And it was very clear that I wasn't trying. So
Yeah,
therefore,
that
I
makes
did not
sense.
come out on the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's really what it felt like of I'm just going to put my shoes on. I'm going to walk out into the jungle. I'm going to kick some leaves. And even when he got one, he walked back. Um, I mean, spoiler for awards later, but one of my favorite moments of the episode was the montage of people finding tubes around Bruce while
Yeah.
he's like standing there, and there's one fourth wall break of Drew staring directly down the
I
camera
had
as
that
he
one
picks one
down
up.
as a very
Yeah,
specific moment of Drew literally realizes the camera watches Bruce walk past this thing, and I look dead at the camera and pull it
yeah,
off the tree. And yeah, I loved that. Um, Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just don't. Again, I don't understand any of the strategy or the tactics he uses at any point. I think you're totally right in this instance. Of he knew this might not go well for me, so why not
Yeah.
go, the route of having a reason it didn't go well? It's because I didn't try. It's not because I couldn't do a good job in it. But like, you're not, if you just give some effort and run around, like you're going to find two or three of them. There was no,
Yeah.
everyone that gave some effort found between 3 and 6 of them basically. And, just kind of luck of the draw of how quickly did you find that first one, or like how, if you spotted one or whatever, and then what was in it. But like, yeah, I don't agree that there would have been, with his thinking that I think you're accurate in pointing out, was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do bad, so I might as well kind of not make it look like I'm actually bad at something, but instead make it look like I didn't try at something. So
Yeah.
with that, then they all end up with their money, and then Jeff arrives, or they go to Jeff. Jeff arrives. They go to Jeff. How
They
did?
go to Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, they go to Jeff. Even though the table was just there to hold the things, but then we head off to the first in a long, long while Survivor auction. All right. The auction is back. It is the first one since season 30 in 2015, which I obviously didn't know on my own accord. They said it in the episode and I took good notes. Any favorite auction moments from the past before we get to this new modern era auction, Tony, that you want to recall? Because I can't say again, born again super fan here. I remember the auction from when I watched as a kid in like the
Yeah.
early seasons. And there was even a couple of the clips that they showed from some of the earliest seasons that I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I like remember that. I feel like I saw that. But I, wasn't locked in on that middle era of the show where a lot of these took place and a lot of those clips came from. Any standout moments from you? Any of the clips you were excited to see in the montage of auction past?
I find it funny that the montage basically just proved that Jeff is a vampire and does not age, because he's like, it's a very, very
He
gradual.
started to very recently.
Yeah, but hasn't, like, up until probably the last like 3 years, he's looked exactly the same. Um, I One of the ones that I really remember is on Fans versus Favorites 2. It was I think it was Cochrane and one of the women who was like one of the last remaining fans, and she was feeding him something off of her finger, and Jeff said something about like, that has to be a first for you or something like that to Cochrane, and Cochrane just like off the cuff said, Jeff, it happens more often than you'd think. And it was just such a throwaway line, but it was so perfect. I also just I like the element of the auction because people can interact with Jeff a bit more. And they can kind of joke back and forth a bit more because it's not something formal like tribal or like a challenge. It's he's there, you're there, your guard's down a little bit because you got the food and everything else. It's a bit more like jovial. I do remember when on Worlds Apart what happened with the auction that sort of like quote unquote broke the auction. Um, so for a while there, like family, like the letters from home were rolled into the auction. So you got somebody could bid on a letter from home. And
Mhm.
then traditionally, Jeff would say like, who else wants to buy their letter from home at the same price that this person did? So Shirin said towards, I think it was either towards the start or when the letter came up, whoever gets the letter from home, buy it for $20. Nobody else bids against them. So then everybody gets their letter from
Yeah.
home for $20. And that, in effect, sort of quote unquote broke it, because there's a period where Mike wasn't going to. Mike Holloway, the eventual winner of Worlds Apart, he wasn't going to because they still hadn't got to the advantage yet. So if everybody else puts $20 up, then the most that somebody else has is 480, and if he keeps his 500, then he's able
He
to
gets
get
the
the advantage over
yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he did take the letter from home because he told everybody he would, but there was that sort of like distrust that was built in that moment.
Yeah, and it's just the whole thing's broken with that
Yeah,
setup
the
of
whole
like
thing's broken when
they
you
found a way around the
yeah,
system and you got to come up with a new system. And
and I get it. I understand. I like the way that the new auction works. I like the concept of first five are guaranteed. After the first 5, I've got a rock. It's face down. I know what it is. It hasn't left this spot. Blah blah blah. The auction will end automatically. However, I'm colorblind. So when the rock is sitting there and they kept panning to it, the first time they did it, I was like, it's to establish that the rock is there. But then when they kept doing it, I had this internal conflict of, do they keep showing the rock to indicate that the rock hasn't moved? And because like it is slightly discolored on the top where I don't know, there been fingerprints on it or whatever. So I could no longer figure out whether they kept showing it to be like, there's only 3 items left. Or if they were just like, the rock's still on the counter, nobody's moved the rock, it's going to be whatever number it was when he pulled it out initially. And it wasn't until I listened to On Fire today that he had said, we like this time, like we took the shot over the shoulder where you could see it to decide whether or not we were going to show the audience, but we wanted the audience to be as if they were playing, so they also don't know. We may do it in the future. And in my head, I was like, cool. Would have been helpful to know that I don't know. Because the whole time, at one point, I just asked everybody I was watching with, it was like, can you see the number or is it upside down? Because I can't tell and I'm colorblind and I feel like it would be like in red and on the brown rock, I wouldn't be able to see it anyway. So I had like no frame of reference as to what was going on for the first bit. I don't like losing your vote.
Yeah, okay.
But I never do.
There we're in lockstep then, because
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm all for the like you don't know when it ends. That's interesting, but then it's only interesting because of the penalty that comes with like there's a reason it
Yeah.
ends at a random point, and that is like, factors into the gameplay of it. But I hate any time someone gets a disadvantage
Yeah.
purely at random. I need there to be more reason behind someone getting a disadvantage than like, I guess you could say this isn't purely a random because there's strategy involved, and obviously everyone kind of after the 5th one, they all
Yeah.
go hard on the like whoever has the most, just get rid of it, whatever item's up. You just got to like kind of take it. But I just don't like, even though it is Bruce in the end that loses his vote. And I was happy for a brief moment in the episode. Yeah, I don't like that part, but I do like the auction. I do like it being open ended, how long it can be. And I do, like you said, that Jeff gets to kind of interact with them in a much different fashion
Yeah.
than he otherwise would, although he doesn't do any negotiating during this one.
No.
Um,
Like
one
sometimes
single
he
time,
has.
I guess he offers Katura, you can swap or not swap. It
Yeah.
is the only single thing. We won't go through every single item, but a couple ones to just get a real quick thought on stand out. The opening item, Kendra immediately says, "Here's all my money for a beer and pretzels."
Yeah.
I get that we later get the kind of emotional backstory of why, like what that reminded her of and like why it, maybe put her over the edge of doing that. But it seemed like that was what she was going to do from the start anyways. I did
Yeah.
not agree with that. One, from just like first item, no. And also like a 40-ounce beer isn't what I think my body needs. Although I don't know, it's a lot of carbs and like, I don't know. You might feel like shit, but it might give you a little energy for a day or two.
And I think she was middle of the road as far as numbers go. So I
Yeah,
remember
so the numbers were let's see, here we go.
because she had 360.
Austin had 700, Bruce 80, D 900, Drew 520, Emily 500, Jake 340, Julie 420, Kat 480, Kellie 700, Kendra 360. So she
So
was near the
lower
bottom.
end. Yeah.
She definitely, maybe she went into that thinking someone's going to outbid me because, I only have more money than 2 people. Actually, yeah, I guess she was really at the bottom. Bruce and Jake were the only ones with less than her, but I just didn't think the item's worth it. And the first item out, I'm not, you might get me to give all my money if I have the third least by the end of it, but I'm not just starting with here's 360, give it to me right now for a beer. D then is the other one that I really disagreed with. On the 4th item,
So
she
I have
has the
counter
most
arguments
money
for both.
What's that?
I have counter arguments for both of them. But go ahead.
There's no counter argument for D's. I'm sorry. She has the most money. And on the 4th one, not the 5th one, where there's a very small, a 1 in 10 chance that it could be the last one, she goes all in on a chocolate milkshake which I'm on the record now a couple times as whenever we talk about food stuff, like the sweets are not what I'm trying for here. There's definitely something better. They're trying to tempt you by giving you the big sweets, and they were pretty sweet heavy on this slate of items here across the whole auction. But couldn't have disagreed with D's move more. Like, come on, dude, you have the most money. There's gonna at least be one item in here that is like a sandwich, some substance, the pizza that comes later, something. I just can't. I couldn't do it for the milkshake. What is your counter argument?
So for Kendra, she's third from the bottom. So if she goes all in right out of the gate, it's unlikely that there are going to be other people who are higher up that are going to go all in out of the gate. So this ensures that once the numbers start dropping and we get past 5 and she doesn't know how many are left, she's out of it. So she doesn't have to worry about losing her vote. Plus, she gets in and out at the very beginning. She doesn't have to barter because there's so many people that can outbid her. And the same thinking as you, like you don't want to get the first thing. So those people are all waiting for more. And I feel like her intention was to just like drop the whole amount on the very first thing and be done with it.
Yeah, I'm just waiting it out from her, but it's mostly because it was the beer. I'm just the
Yeah,
pretzels are one of the better things offered, honestly, as
true.
far as like what might help you the most. The beer just makes I'm just like, no, that's gonna I just can't imagine you feel good after that. But
No, I
it
mean like
definitely
I'm
tastes
drinking
delicious
one
in the
now,
moment.
but yeah, I'm also not 16 days of not eating and
Yeah.
barely drinking. As far as D, she's already a fairly big threat, right? Like physical, social, every aspect. She then gets the most money out of everyone. But the item that she takes goes all in on, make sure that she doesn't have the most amount of money or anything like that. Um, but she also takes something that is not highly contested. So she's not painting a bigger target on her back by like if there was a steak dinner or something like that, right? And so everybody else is bidding on it and she just drops her 900 because she's got the ultimate fuck you. Like she can drop it and get anything that she wants at any point. But once you get past 5, you're hooped. So for me, I think with her, it was a matter of like, I want a milkshake, but I also something that not everybody is gonna like run right at and try to bid up so that she's not making an even bigger target by taking something that like somebody's been craving since the day they hit the beach. Um, that's the only thing that I can really figure with her is she wanted to take something that didn't paint a target on her back because having 900, 200 more than the next person is already going to paint a target on your back plus your D and your
Yeah.
pick.
That makes sense that yeah, she definitely doesn't want to paint the target because I was gonna say like yeah, when she bids $900, the next most is 480. So like
Yeah,
she could have bid 500 and won and still had the then set 420 left, the second most at that time left for the next
right.
items. But yeah, you start to just be like a dick. So you might you swayed me halfway at least on D, but I still don't know that I totally agree with it and definitely don't agree with Kendra. Katura gets completely screwed. The only bad
Yep.
item, I guess you could say, like Julie doesn't get food, and you know you do want food as much as it's probably nice to brush your teeth. You want food, obviously. So half great item. But Katura is the only one that like actually gets obviously a disgusting item that she doesn't even take a bite out of. Austin
Yep.
does. It was horrifying. They
Yeah,
played
the
up
noise.
these squishy noises they used during that, which were obviously not coming from Austin in the moment,
They were.
were horrifying.
They
Horrifying.
were. It was the sound. They talked about it with On Fire. It was the actual noise. What they did was they brought it forward, so they made it crisper. But it was the actual noise of that eye going
Well,
squish.
yeah,
It was from.
they turned the volume up for sure because it
It
was
was a
loud.
red snapper. It was a red snapper eye that came up
So
from.
gross. So
Yeah,
gross.
it was deflated
Jesus.
and it was gooey, and yeah,
I hadn't realized that like the challenge had kind of got I forgot how soft the challenge has gotten as far as like what they have to eat in these days where I'm kind of like
yes,
would be comfortable doing it. It's still gross, but it would be, you know, not like this where it's like this is I'm with you,
yeah.
Katura. Don't you dare like you could tell me that thing has 500 grams of protein in it. And I'm like, nope, no, thank you. I can't even think about it. I can't take it back with me and roast it. I can't do anything. Bruce ends up losing his vote, which is kind of, it feels like karma in the end of like you didn't try to really get any money. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like funny that this backfires on you. And as the one with the least amount of money, you at the end up with it all left and don't get anything and lose your vote. Obviously, eventually that, ultimately doesn't matter in the end. It only plays a role in him being able to say he made history on the show. My final thing on the Survivor auction, really fast, is a question. When they leave, so Kellie has gotten the last food item,
Mhm.
and then he says, Bruce, you have the most, and try to fake you out, but like you lose your vote. Everyone put your stuff down and leave. Like you're
Yeah.
done. And Kellie has had that plate in her hand for like 90 seconds or
Mhm.
whatever. And he tells, like, it's very direct, like put everything down and leave.
Yep.
And I paused it once and you kind of get a glimpse. It looked like the entire sandwich, like Kellie didn't eat her sandwich. And
Yeah.
so are they allowed to take all of that with them? Because like on the cake, they have this specific rule. Here's your timer. You have to eat
Yeah.
it right here and now. But even at that one, they like it whatever's in your hand. It's not your mouth. Like they all pick up the handfuls at the end. And I'm like, wait a minute, did
Right.
Kellie not get to eat any of her shit? She just sipped on her margarita, and then Jeff's like, get the fuck out of here and don't take your PB&J with you. Did that happen?
My understanding is when the auction is over, the food eating is over as well. Sort of like when they do, when you have an incentive to step out of a challenge where it's like you can eat burgers for the entire time that this competition is going on. I feel like it's the same deal where, like, when the auction is over, put down the food, do your thing. Now, she could have like shoved it in her face, and it's not like they would
Yeah,
have told
whether
you to spit
is
it out.
production gonna
Um,
run in and rip it out of her hand if she's like, oh
yeah,
shit, and just like shoves it in her mouth? But like,
yeah.
I don't know. I would love to
Now,
find out that info.
I would also like to say I think that rather than losing your vote, which I hate, I think a better, like, quote unquote penalty for having the most money. And I did also like that at the very top, he's like, there are no advantages. Just get that
Yeah,
out of
that
your
was
head right
good. I
now,
appreciated that.
which I appreciated that a lot. Um, I think that they should just lose the ability to take part in the immunity challenge rather than losing your vote, because then you still have agency in the game. Like,
Or a
you're still
choice.
able,
You could
yeah,
maybe pick like, hey, you either don't get to compete or you can lose your vote.
yeah,
Like
like,
you can risk it if you want.
yeah, because I mean, losing your vote, like, there's so much emphasis in, like, the history of Survivor of, like, your vote is the most important thing, and then to lose it because you happen to have the most money at the end of a randomized number of auction items is sort of shitty. But like, if you lose your ability to take part in the immunity challenge, only one person wins that anyway.
Yeah,
So it's likely that you still would have lost even if you took part. So at least with losing the option to take part in the immunity challenge, you still have your vote. You still are an active part of your alliance. Because really, like, to get ahead of myself, Bruce didn't have a vote and he won immunity. So he could have just as easily sat with Caleb over on the jury because he had zero impact on how the game was played at that point or going forward. Um, so
yeah,
I think, like, yeah, I think it makes more sense and it still keeps the game going to lose the opportunity to play in the immunity challenge.
for sure. I'm with you. Yeah, I would like them to make that slight tweak, but I trust that they will. I'm glad they brought the auction back. It was a lot of fun. And now
Mhm.
we go from that to the next challenge that happens pretty quickly right thereafter. They do go to the beach, but we're there very briefly. So we'll just skip ahead to the
Yeah.
immunity challenge itself. And if there's anything from that, we'll cover it in the following segment. But at the immunity challenge, while there wasn't really any negotiation basically that took place in the auction, there is a negotiation that takes place at the beginning of the immunity challenge where Jeff, at his most devilish, says, now that you're full and maybe forget briefly what starving is like, I'm going to offer you this massive bag of rice, but I need basically half of you, 4 out of
Yeah.
9, to sit out to get it. And then he pulls the You want me to like help speed this up? Here's the knife, pull the bottom. And I can tell by you shaking your head, we have very different reactions because I fucking loved it. I thought he pulled it off. I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. You clearly did not like Jeff poking the hole in the bottom of the rice and forcing them to make a quick decision.
So I don't care about the quick decision. I wouldn't even care if he's like, you have 30 seconds left on this bag of rice, and then we're going to this bag of rice that's smaller. I felt that the stabbing it with the knife and watching it all drip into the other bin was just like another Jeff power trip. And I don't know if it's just because I listened to On Fire and I've got such disdain for Jeff right now, in regards to the whole Adam situation, that I'm just like, stop being a dick everywhere. You can pick one place to be a dick, and preferably it's off our screens and off our airwaves. But I I appreciate that it made the decision go faster. I don't like so the reason I don't like it is because Dee and Emily stepped forward first. Then Katura said, like, why don't we just agree whoever steps forward is safe, which is what happened when Kane got eliminated from the game because he stepped forward and then got sent out. But then when Jeff stabs the thing, that means there is significantly less rice by the time that the decision is made for both Drew and Katura to step forward than there was for Emily and Dee. So really, they're getting a lesser deal than what they initially signed up for through no fault of their own.
Well, they could have stepped back.
I don't know if they could have.
It's not enough anymore.
I don't know if they could have, though. I don't know if that was the thing that they could, or whether it was like you step forward and then you
I think
forward.
they would have been allowed to. It would have looked, the tribe would have been like, wait a minute, what? It would have looked a certain way. But yeah, we're in disagreement because I thought it was very compelling and was really fun and was a good a smart move, and it was a way to make that decision and really compelling and interesting and like put them in the pressure cooker. They do, four of them step up and do it. They lose, I think, at least a half of that bag of rice. Like they lose a lot of it. The
They
bag
lost
is
a
still,
lot of it, yeah.
it was huge at the beginning. I was like, I believe you that that's enough for all of them for the rest of the time here. It was not the case by the end of it, but still a decent amount of rice that the group will get. Then for the challenge itself, they have to hold one armed with straight arm as as they have to
Jake
say
was told
repeatedly,
several
because Jake is
times.
just like, are you sure? Am I not allowed to use my bicep just a little bit, Jeff? Are you sure? Are you sure? Straight arm, one arm, four sections every 5 minutes. They move down one until they're at the very bottom, where both the pole they're holding up that has a third of their body weight is leaning to the point of it just gets heavier and heavier the further down it is leaning, and the harder it is to hold on to the rope. And at the very bottom, there's not even a little knot to hold as leverage. And ultimately, Bruce versus Julie is the end. The two oldest people, as Jeff calls out there, are the ones left standing. It's a pretty impressive performance all around. Like a lot of them make it to the final round. Thinking how many? Well, one, two, yeah, four of them make it to the final round, and six of them make it to the round right before that, or basically to the transition point. So very impressive all around. I liked the game. I think this is a very fun one, and I enjoyed it all the way up until the moment Bruce won.
Yep, that sounds about right. I was also with it right up until that point. And again, just because like I almost feel like if you don't have your vote, then it seems too much to say if you don't have your vote, then you can't take part in the challenge. But at the same time, he lost his vote and then didn't matter anyway. So that's why
I will say
think,
that, obviously I have very negative feelings, and we'll get to why about Bruce, because I mean, they weren't super positive coming in, but obviously they've taken a big turn, and I haven't fully explained why throughout this podcast. But it is, if I was a fan of Bruce or was just not holding this immense grudge because of who ultimately goes home and because I blame him for it, it would be compelling that, it's a obviously compelling storyline that the guy who loses his vote after all this then like finds a way to win immunity and avoid the fact like he's going home. Everyone on the beach wants him home at this point. That's the main thing we skipped over in the little time they're back on the beach. Everyone's like, literally everyone in different groups, but every single person is like, we're going Bruce. All of our nightmare is over, and he doesn't even have a vote. He can't do anything about it. And then he wins. So that is compelling. Ultimately, I'm just really upset by it. All.
And that's the thing, is just because I'm petty, and I don't necessarily have anything against Bruce as a person, all based on his character. Yeah, you do now. all about his character
So
on the
bad.
show. I'm just like, dude, you like, no, this, no, this can't happen. And it's just, and I appreciated that you can't have any element of Bruce succeeding without uh, a check in with our local correspondent Katura of just like, this is the worst thing ever. And I appreciate that every time something good happens to Bruce, you get a Katura confessional, and every time something bad happens to Bruce, you get a Katura confessional.
Yeah.
Um, it's nice to have consistency.
It's fantastic. And since I've already used my allotments of F words, I will just say that I had this listed in our outline as mother effing Bruce wins F'ity F. That's how I
Yes,
had
you
this
did.
listed in our outline. So that's how I feel. And I will finally explain why I feel so poorly about Bruce now as we head back to the beach for the ensuing scramble. So, as we just referenced, prior the thing we didn't really talk about from the opening scenes on the beach and then from the brief scenes between the two challenges is that we have at one point all the women talking and saying, women's alliance and our top target is Bruce. We have all the Reba group talking at some point and be like, we're still together. Our target is Bruce. We have basically every member of Old Bellow that is left talking to someone saying, yeah, like it's time. We all need
Yeah.
Bruce. And we have Katura being like, hallelujah. Everyone finally wants to do it. It's Bruce. So prior to him winning, everyone, literally everyone on the beach, this would have been more unanimous than Caleb's unanimous vote. It was Bruce going, although he has an idol, and they would have, I
Flushed
guess
it
he wouldn't have
somehow.
actually went home, but they would have like
Yeah.
100% been like, Bruce, everyone is voting for you. You will need to play that idol, and then we'll figure out who to vote for after. But we're not even doing like a one backup vote on who's the secondary plan. We'll figure that out after we all unanimously vote for you because we don't want you out of here. And so that's off the table. So they have to figure out something else to do. And there's two plans that come about. We'll talk about Jake first. Jake is the obvious backup plan. The
Yep.
Reba crew is upset with him for, having tried to go against them at the last vote. He's been on Bello anyways. The Reba crew plus Emily, that five is now truly running this game
Yes.
completely without a doubt, especially because they have Kendra and Kellie and Katura all open to will work with you if need be, and seems like need be. And so Jake knows he's on the bottom. He's having conversations, and I have complimented Jake multiple times on this podcast about throughout the game of him in the earliest episodes, not, making agreements or like just being like, I'm talking to you, so I have to like be a
Yeah.
yes man or say anything. Like I've always loved that he won't do that. And that he's like, actually, like, can we wait some things out? Can I say like, I like you, but we're not locking anything in or whatever? And I've really liked that. And he has a moment that I think is masterful again here, where he is, I forget who the two women he's talking to,
Kellie and Emily.
Kellie and Emily, yeah, confront, not corner him, but they're talking to him. Those three are talking,
Yeah.
and they're like, basically like, if not Hugh, we need a name. So you say a name. And he's
Oof.
like, well,
It's
if
like,
you
don't you
guys
have
are
a plan?
actually honest about not voting for me and being open to anything else, you tell me what you're open to that isn't me. And they won't. And then he's like, well, then I'm not like, what?
Yeah.
You just want me to say a name so that you can just say yes and lie to me and walk away. And I'm not going to do that. And they then eventually walk away at a stalemate, and he makes a face at the camera, or the camera was in a good angle. I don't know if it was a full breaking of the fourth wall, where he kind of like rolls his eyes of like, yep, I knew exactly what that was attempting to be. So like, got you, even though you're still going to vote for me. Like I got you in that moment.
Yeah.
I thought that was masterful. Do you agree that
I
while
do.
it's, he's left in a shit spot here, that was still the right thing to do in that moment?
It was the right thing to do. I mean, also the other thing was where they were like, we want to vote with you, but in order for our vote to work, you need to not play your shot in the dark because we need that vote. And then he was like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
It's
Like,
like, that
you could
sounds like
that's a surefire
you
you
want to
need to play
remove
your
the
shot in
one
the dark.
small little chance I have at not getting
Yeah.
voted out. No, thank
When
you.
they said that, I was like, Jake is playing his shot in the dark this evening. But I appreciate that he just had that conversation. They're like, well, who do you want? And he's like, well, not me. Would be preferable. and it just kind of
He's
kept
so
going
goddamn
around.
funny.
Yeah, and
He's so funny.
they said, well, who would you want then? He's like, well, I'm assuming if you're coming to me, then you already have a name. Well, yeah, but like, who would you want? He's like, well, whoever you want is fine by me. And just like not giving up that name. And there were a couple conversations where it was like Drew was also like a masterclass in that conversation, because they had the conversation with Katura. I think it was Drew, Austin, and Julie. They were all at the water well and they were talking. And after the vote where she voted for Caleb, they were saying like, we appreciate that you voted with us and like we can do this moving forward. And she was like, well, who do you want me to say? And Drew was like, in the attempt to be of transparency,
Of
because you
trust
are willing,
building. Yeah.
trust building, because you are willing to vote with us, you give us a name and we'll do it 100%. Now, in any other situation, they would be probably have pushed back a bit, but Couture is just like, yeah, Bruce, 100% Bruce. Bruce is who I want. Bruce,
Yeah,
Bruce,
they knew who she was gonna say.
Yeah,
And
but she
she
was the one
also
who said
probably
it.
knew they obviously know who I'm gonna say, and I feel pretty certain they're gonna be okay with it. So I
Yeah,
feel okay putting the name out to them. But yeah,
yeah.
Drew, we'll talk about Drew a little bit when we get to the power rankings, because someone may be moving up that leaderboard.
Ooh,
I love Drew so much.
he's
There's
pretty awesome.
I just love this cast a lot.
Yeah,
So yeah, Jake is obviously just feeling, like he's on the bottom, but then things take a little bit of a turn as there is a new seed planted, which I will take at this point. I will reveal the first thing. I knew who was voted out before watching the episode. I did have that spoiled, unfortunately.
not by
So
me.
my perfect record, not by Tony. My perfect record. I just I'm it's a horrific thing to say, but I just can't stay off Twitter with when I watch the challenge and immediately after. And I don't know, there's probably a way for I could filter and be like, I really want to see what people are saying about the challenge, but I don't want to see any Survivor related stuff. But like Survivor activity is way more prevalent than challenge activity. So
Mine was the reverse.
I knew that what was going to happen. So I was not surprised when a plan is then thrown of like, well, if not Jake, maybe it could be Kellie. And Drew plants that seed to his little fivesome that they've got going. Again, the original Reba 4 plus Emily. And I think it's really smart, his
Yep.
reasoning behind it. And they obviously ultimately go with that reasoning of, hey, I know we want Bruce, and we've been thinking Jake because he's also against us, but there's this slight concern that like maybe Bruce would play as idol for Jake, which
Yeah.
absolutely not. I don't know if you guys have met Bruce, but he's not.
He talked about it though.
Yeah, he literally patted Jake on the head like son style. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea, son. Like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna walk
Which
away
could hurt him
smiling
later
now.
on.
I'm not gonna say that I will. I'm not gonna say that I won't, but you know that I'm not gonna, right? Okay,
Yeah.
good. But Drew very astutely, I think, points out, and they all realize that it's astute of like, hey, if it's us five versus the other four, and we're they don't use Kendra's name, but they're kind of like putting Kendra at the bottom of the threat list of those four, or the
Yeah.
most likely to work with them list. And Katura, I guess they don't mention during this. But they're like, if we want Bruce and we want Jake, and we also view Kellie as a bit of a threat, then there's this one idol in existence. If we vote Kellie out now, and she has no idea, it's a total blindside, there's no idol in play for her, we vote her out, we then have enough numbers with how many are left that we can split the vote next time, not have to worry about an idol, and still have enough votes to guarantee if the five of us do what we say we do, it'll happen, which
Yeah.
is really great planning, is incredible strategy, and goes to speak to, I think this group of five, we'll see, because the next week on, as it's a TV show, they got to try to tease, stuff. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe next week is the first time anyone from this five starts to look around and say, it can't actually be the five of us as the final five, right? That doesn't totally make
Right.
sense. But for the moment, they're like, we have such trust that this group is voting together and feels like it can stay together another vote or two, that this is the best path. If we want these three people out, we got to go about it in this order, and we remove all bit of risk from our side
Yeah.
of the equation. So I think Drew, has played the mastermind in every confessional throughout the season, but in this moment, he truly was being a mastermind and really laid it out exactly as the field was set. And it's a masterful plan.
Well, he also, in doing so and in putting that plan in motion, he got his buddy Austin a full-fledged idol. So now Austin has two because Kellie was the last
Without
remaining
mention.
amulet holder. Yeah, without mentioning it. And the other thing that we didn't mention was there was the Talk of the Girls Alliance right at the top of the episode. And Kendra was like, you can see those guys over there, and you know full well they're talking
Oh, it was
the
going to get
Girls
mentioned.
Alliance. And it pans over and they're talking about those. And I was like, yeah,
Like,
that sounds
Jake, you're the
that's
only one got to
accurate.
eat tacos. Tell me about, can you describe what it was like to eat that taco, dude? All I need to know about this morning. Like, yep, dudes being dudes.
Yep.
It's great.
Oblivious.
Yeah. So we head to the tribal council thinking it could be Jake, it could be Kellie. And then we go and have that horrible thing happen. So at tribal, the focus quickly turns to Jake as expected.
After Bruce.
And Jake loses his words for the first time all season. But he regains them because he realized he just doesn't want to answer any of Jeff's questions. He doesn't want to talk about the things everyone wants to talk about. He would like to just give his pitch why he shouldn't leave, which is a good pitch. I will say that once he actually gets to it, his pitch is accurate of like, he's playing the right notes. I think the right notes of like, this is, you know, in reality, this should never, at this stage of the game, this should not be 9 people here. There's 9 people left at this point, right? So there shouldn't be 8 people.
Well, there's 10 now.
Caleb's first jury member, there's 9 playing at this moment before Kellie is voted out. Yeah. So he's making the clear case of like 9 people left. There shouldn't be an 8-1 vote. Like that doesn't make sense because at least 3 of you have to realize that of that 8, you're 8, 7, and 6. And so you shouldn't be doing you, especially if you're 8 or 7, whatever, you know, maybe this is still me, but it shouldn't be a landslide. I think he makes a good pitch. Did you like that he was just like, I'm gonna keep being like, what was the question? What was the question? You know what, Jeff, could I just make a pitch instead? Can you stop asking questions? What did you think about his performance?
So I felt that it was intentional. Whether it was or not 100% sure. But I felt that the aimlessness and like the losing place and everything was used to implement the slip of my idol versus unidol so that it seemed like it fit. Because it's going to be very hard to say that without it just seeming like you trying to grasp at straws. Yeah. But at this point, there's like, I think with Kellie, there's 10 people left in the game because Caleb was 11th. So with 10 people left in the game, there's already Bruce that can't vote, so it doesn't matter. But then you also there has to be somebody else that's next in the pecking order after Jake. And like that little, you saw how well it was placed because of the reaction from everyone of that my idol versus unidol. And everybody knew he was. So I feel like the aimlessness was used to lower his threat level of just being like, I can't even process gameplay right now. And then to have that further slip of my idol versus unidol was all intentional. And I feel like it was masterful in that sense. Now, it could have been completely unintentional and it just worked with what he was trying to do. But either way, it worked.
Yeah, that's really smart. I hadn't thought of that, but that would make total sense that gets, because that moment does play off much more genuine than it should, because it's obviously a ploy and he obviously doesn't have an idol, but like it seems like the reaction to it is like pretty genuine. Like, wait a minute, we actually do have to, like, is he fucking with us? Like, he's fucking with us, right? And yeah, so that's really smart and that's really brilliant by him. If that's true, that's really smart by him. I think, I mean, the blind side's coming either way. I don't think he convinced anyone in the moment that they're actually swayed. I think the 5 that ultimately vote for Kellie were in lockstep going in of like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make this decision as a group, and nothing was going to sway it. And thankfully for them, they don't have to do a very big acting job because Jake does 90% of the talking at the tribal council, and in effect really does a great job covering that. Like, you know, if Jake just doesn't talk that much, has quick answers to Jeff and Jeff has to like interact with everyone, you have to do a little bit more of an acting job and find a way to like not answer questions with an answer, to like not let on that maybe it isn't Jake or maybe there's something else afoot or whatever. And so he really like helps them pull this blindside off, because Kellie gets voted out, and it is like the word
Yeah.
blindside is, a decade into being way overused. Every vote is a blindside in every one of these games at this point. Like, there's the lingo of the reality competition show games is just all beaten to death by
Yep.
now. But blindside, the chief among them, there isn't a vote that isn't a blindside. Every vote has to be a blindside, this, that, and the other. This one actually fits the OG definition of blindside, where Kellie was shocked, stunned, hurt,
All of them.
totally unexpected, had no idea it was coming. And we'll now get to the reason why I blame Bruce is, yes, I think everyone did like rightfully saw her
Mhm.
as a threat, but I do think, and they made sure to give us a couple moments of it this episode and last episode, that it mostly came down to, we want Bruce out of here. And Bruce keeps telling everyone that Kellie is his number one. And Kellie, does the right thing of like, I can't tell this person to his face, like, no, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to be. She's told other people I'm not. Like he says
Yeah.
it, and I just kind of smile and nod, and I'll just keep getting information, but like I'm not. But it is very much because you are a little bit of a threat, but also Jake isn't the one. Like Bruce is the person we want out.
Mhm.
Jake isn't actually the one close. Bruce goes around telling everyone you're his bestie, you're his number
Yep.
one, you're attached to him. And the same as last week, Jake was like, it can't be D, so it's got to be Julie. And the same throughout the history of Survivor, at least recent history that I'm more privy to, it is like, well, if you can't take the head of the snake, who's the lieutenant? Who's the
Yep.
the first commander, the second in command, whatever. And in this, it is very much like, whether it was the final reason, the most predominant reason above her just being a threat, being on the other side or not, it was definitely one of the reasons, and maybe the biggest one, of that Bruce is out there just refusing to accept reality, accept the conversations. And she was put in a horrific spot by having to guy everyone on the island at this point, once out of there, walking around being like, well, I've got one friend, my bestie, Kellie. Kellie's my bestie. And I think that ruined her game. And I think that's the reason she's gone, is because Bruce got safety in this moment where everyone wanted him out. And he had told everyone over and over, that's my number one. That's who I'm playing this game with. And that was the biggest of the multiple factors, because I obviously don't want to downplay the fact that she was a big
A
threat. I
beast.
had
Yeah.
her one or two in my power rankings each of the last like 3 or 4 weeks. She was my winner's pick from the beginning. That was more obviously a blind pick of just, random pictures, but she was a threat. But I think the Bruce element was the biggest element, and was the element that swayed them from, we don't need to be that concerned about Jake. We don't even need to do I think in a different, if Bruce doesn't do all this, they do hey, we're worried about Bruce playing his idol for Jake. So 4 of us vote for Jake, one of us vote for Kellie. She could be the backup,
Yeah.
versus flipping it to, she should be the primary. We can worry about them later. It all makes sense, the whole thing. So that's why I'm mad at you, Bruce. That's why I'm never gonna not be mad at you, Bruce. You're a wonderful person by all accounts, and I hold nothing against you other than you ruined my favorite Survivor player of the modern era's game. Because Kellie is definitely my favorite player of the modern Survivor era, and I'm just very upset that she went home.
I mean, I don't listen to Why Blank Lost every week to not say perception is reality. And I mean, everybody was told that she was his number one. So, in addition to being an absolute threat in every other aspect of the game, she was also collateral damage. I think when the episode aired, when it happened, I think no less than 3 times did I say within a 5 minute span, Bruce totally sunk her game. Bruce is the reason she's gone. And I mean, again, it's like a small portion of why she's gone, but it was what tipped the scale, is that she was perceived to be a very strong number for Bruce. And if you can't get rid of Bruce this week, if you weaken his alliance, then it's going to be easier to get him next week. And it's funny that Bruce has become like this like unstoppable force that they just can't figure out how to get out of the game. Um, to the point where like I could see him ending up being at final 3 just
Not a
because
chance.
like
Not a
through a
chance.
comedy, I'm fine with him going home next week, but through like some sort of comedy of errors where like you see it's like an old Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon where like they have a wrecking ball that's swinging in and then he bends down to pick up an immunity idol that he finds
Yeah, and it
and then
just
somebody
goes
else
right
gets hit.
by him, and then he
Yeah,
ducks again when it comes back through the other way. It's like, how is this happening?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that
Um,
that could take
yeah,
place for
it
sure.
could. Now, I found it interesting though, like because normally if it's a vote where it's going to come down to like one vote, you normally see this name, then this name, then this name, then this name. And I really liked that they did it
They
heavy
set it up
on Jake,
hard. Oh,
and then they just like did a 180. And I liked that. Like it was really good from a production standpoint because we all know that they go like the votes are all shuffled for dramatic effect. But that was that was the clincher, was that it wasn't back and forth, because if it's back and forth, then she has like that build up. But there was a Sophie and Coach comparison early on in the episode, and I think it was Drew that said it, and it's 100% true. It was Survivor South Pacific that Coach and Sophie were on it, and Sophie's like a absolute genius, and she's an amazing Survivor player. She ultimately won that season. She was back on season 40, but she had Coach who was just like there, and it became like this thing where he was there, and it was mutually assured destruction. Like he was with her, whether she wanted him to be or not. And the further contrast is when she got blindsided in season 40, she also forgot her torch. And it was just such a throwaway thing that wasn't a part of the initial comparison, but then ended up happening at Tribal because she had never been voted out before because she won her season. So it was the first time that she had been voted out of Survivor.
I remember that now because I have watched season 40, and
Yeah,
I remember that moment now. Okay, that makes sense. Well, yeah, Kelly's gone. I'm very sad about it. But
she'll be back.
I will pitch at the end my take on a returnee season that would get her on. But if they do a returnee season, I
Oh
think
yeah.
she and a lot of people from this cast are
Pretty
clear
sure
and obvious
the
candidates.
current jury would be coming back.
Yeah, yeah, both those two for sure, and potential future jury members as well. But with that, the episode concludes. Let's hand out some awards. First up, we mentioned a few of them already, but there was a lot of them to go through. The quote of the episode. So we mentioned I don't know, I'm kind of sucking at Survivor right now. Hopefully I stop sucking. That's the goal, from Jake. That was definitely a nominee for me. Immediately before that, kind of like anti quote of the week nominee, Bruce, when he was like kind of, reading Jake is, the rules
Mm,
of playing Survivor and why everything he had done wrong. He said, "You're following a dead horse to water."
yeah,
And I don't think that's the right expression. I don't think
it's
he did
not.
that. Yeah, I didn't understand. He had a couple different expressions, maybe mixed up something. I don't know, but I stood out enough. I was like, wait a minute, that was wrong.
Yeah,
Something's
it's a
wrong.
mix of beating
Something's
a
wrong.
dead horse, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, these are all parts of sayings. And I think you've been on the island a long time. We haven't had the auction yet at that point. Did I have any other nominees? I also had, of the many Katura cut-ins when Bruce was doing something good or bad, when he's doing really bad in the looking for things, we cut to Katura. To my utter joy and amusement, Bruce's basket is empty. The smile couldn't have been bigger on her face in that moment. And then I think that's all the quotes I had. Did you have any other quotes or lines from the episode?
I have 7.
Oh my
6 of them
goodness.
are Jake's. Um,
Yeah, you could just write down Jake can we get a stenographer in here and just write every word Jake said this episode and just put that down.
Katura trying that fisheye when Jeff was like, it'll get you fueled. And she took like the tiniest little bite and she goes, I'm fueled, I'm fine, it's good, I'm good. And then leaves. um, Also, these were back to back, but they were really good. Of don't go home, that's my thoughts. And then I'm good for not me. We're in that same conversation with Emily and Kellie. Also, just as like a banner in Survivor of I don't think altruism exists in Survivor. was a fantastic line.
Love that.
Um, the point petered out, but the actual statement was strong. And then when he played his shot in the dark of, can we have like Caleb blow on it or something as he takes it over? And the first Kellie vote, I don't know if you caught it, but the first Kellie vote after 3 subsequent Jake votes, he goes, "Oh, people are playing Survivor."
I did catch that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but my
Because he
absolute
realized it wasn't his Kelly vote.
yeah.
Which he wait,
Well,
did
he
he
didn't
even
have a
vote for
vote.
Kelly?
He didn't have a vote. He had played a shot in the dark.
Oh yeah. Never mind. Yeah. So he knew obviously it wasn't his vote.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone
So,
else did it.
but my absolute favorite of the episode, possibly of the season, and I hope I don't spike the mic when I do this, was when Kellie gets voted out and he goes, "Whoa, sorry, whoa," as like outside voice, "Whoa," followed by inside voice, "Sorry."
He learned a little
Whoa.
bit from Caleb's celebration of the shot in the dark of like,
Yeah.
oh wait, no wait, someone else is screwed because of this. I should redo that. I should maybe you
Yeah.
should have just not done it. You should definitely not redo it, but if you're gonna redo it, yeah, tone it down. Yeah, I would I think he also would have been very okay if Kelly would have slapped him, he would have been like, deserved. I'm
There.
sorry you're going home. And been totally
That was a
fine
bit
with it.
boisterous. I apologize.
Yeah. But yeah, those were all funny. Yeah, Jake wins the quote of the episode.
Yeah.
He is in the leader for at the end of every season. On challenge seasons, I've never had to do this for Survivor, but on
There you
challenge
go.
seasons, I have the Dan Renzi Award for Confessional King or Queen of the season,
Fair enough.
in honor of Dan Renzi, the first ever Confessional King of the challenge way back when. And so you'll have to think before the season recap podcast who deserves from the earliest days of the show, who deserves the award named after them for being the first ever kind of, king or queen of confessional, of just we
I
need
like
this
it.
person to talk on screen. Favorite moment of the episode, I will again go first with the nominees, although basically all the moments you just said of Jake could be moments. The moment you referenced earlier of the women all sitting around talking alliance and being like, I bet the guys are doing the same thing, and the guys are out there being like, Jake, so you got to eat a taco, dude. What was that like? What was the taco all about? I loved that. And the Drew moment we mentioned of him looking at breaking the fourth wall and finding the thing right as Bruce and the camera walked past it. And then the squish noises are just so over the top. I know that they might be real, but they're still over the top. I hated it. And then the one that I would give the award to that you obviously disagreed with, and we fully disagreed was I loved Jeff slicing the hole in the rice. I thought it was cool as shit. I thought it was so cool. What say you about the best moment of the episode?
So it would be, for me, it was between Jake's like boisterous whoa followed by sorry and then a more reserved whoa, but still going with whoa. It was almost like a Bill and Ted moment, which obviously I loved.
Yeah,
And then
Keanu could deliver that so well in a reenactment.
yeah,
Oh my god, he would nail that.
oh, it'd be amazing. And then the other favorite moment was as all encompassing the montage of people finding bamboo tubes all around Bruce while Bruce was looking elsewhere. Was just, it was so well done. And it was just like a Benny Hill music cue away from being like top tier. I will give it to, I will specify because like Drew was the best one out of the bunch. I liked everybody looking slightly at Bruce before they grabbed the thing and ran, but Drew staring down the barrel of the camera and just being like, yoink, thank you, and
He's
turning around
really
and
good at
running away.
television.
Yeah.
He's really good at television for being a rookie at television. He's very good at it.
Yes.
Okay, so we will disagree there, but that's fine. Multiple winners can be had. Best gameplay of the episode. Do you have any? I guess I didn't actually write any down for this one. There had to
I
be some. I mean, the only one we commented on during all the discussion there was that I thought Jake not saying a name and like reading the situation, although it still left him as vulnerable as ever, was still like the right thing to do and good.
I have to give it, as much as I hate to do it because of the outcome, Drew's conversation and Drew's read on the situation that Kellie is
Yeah,
the
it's
one to get
beautiful.
out.
Spot
Like
on.
it needed to be done, but it hurt when it happened. So yeah, I give it to Drew for just like having that razor sharp read on it and saying like, we do this now, they fall apart, and we can split the votes. And whether, I don't even know if he fully realized, and I'm sure he did, that it would also enable Austin to get his full-fledged second idol.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's no mention of that at all in this episode.
No.
There's no mention of the amulet ever at any point. So we'll probably find out next episode how much Drew and Austin have been discussing that, and if at any point if Austin has filled in anyone other than Drew, because I do believe
Yeah.
Drew knows he has both idols,
I
and
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
if he remembers, maybe they haven't discussed the amulet thing, but he was at least privy to the knowledge of these other
Yeah.
two people have it, and the end result is an idol. And I guess actually Dee and Julie both do too. They were told about the idol, the first idol eventually, and they were told about the amulet. So
Yeah, the
um
only question becomes whether or not, because everybody was so adamant that Caleb negated 12 votes, that I don't know if anyone fully picked up on, or
yeah, so
if
we'll
they
find
had that
out.
follow-up.
And if he's told anyone.
Yeah,
If
that he said, by the way, I have my idols good till final 5 now.
because it
Because
at least even in passing, if him and Drew were chatting, comes up of like, oh, it'd be great. Like, even if Drew is convinced, like, wait, you voted and you don't have it or whatever,
yeah.
like, oh, it'd be great if you like had that idol, or like, well, it's like crazy. We almost had two. We have one somehow, some way when they're talking strategy, like it's
Well,
referred to in some way
Emily,
where there's an awkward pause or a
yeah,
moment for Austin to either say, I have this, or lie and be like,
yeah.
yeah, damn, we were so close, but like I wasn't confident we were all going to vote Caleb. And like, that sucks that it was unanimous and I still voted or whatever.
Emily
So we'll
vote
find out.
counting is the one that could be the thing. And if she would likely, instead of the Sabaya situation where she said it outright, I feel that she would be much more likely to have the conversation with Austin and Drew and be like, hey, did you guys notice that only 11 votes were read rather than 12? I know everybody says 12, and then that could be that moment. But I can't foresee that Emily didn't realize that there was one less vote because it's Emily and she's already done it once. So I feel like she would count the votes as they come out. But that's the only thing that I can figure that would give the
Yeah, but it's
opportunity.
it's double the amount of votes.
Yeah.
So who knows? And it was in such a situation where you're like just in awe of like, oh my God, I can't believe this word, like the
And then
shot
she
thing
almost
worked.
got votes as a
Yeah, and
result.
then yeah,
So,
so
yeah.
I don't know, even someone is locked in as she is. Maybe she missed it. We'll find out. Worst gameplay. You swayed me. I was gonna give it to D, but you kind of swayed me. And I don't think Kendra wanting the beer and the pretzels is like horrible gameplay.
I give
Just
it to
it's so
Bruce for not taking the money thing seriously. It
yeah, that's
like
just come on, dude. Like try a little harder.
it didn't, yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, it didn't take him out of the running because he won immunity, but like the cause and effect of him not taking the money hunt seriously resulted in him only being given a reward by somebody else who won and losing his vote. Also, in regards to that, I think Jake should have given it to Katura and Julie because Katura was the only one who got a raw deal on,
Yeah,
literally
bad
a raw
move.
deal on
That's
the thing, but Bruce was the only one who spoke up. So I I
and
wouldn't have even
Jake looks like
asked.
he actively didn't want to give it to Bruce. He
I
was
know.
like, ugh,
Anybody else?
okay, Bruce. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to say him just because he was the only one that responded to your question with like, well, I haven't
Yeah.
eaten anything. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because we didn't say it earlier. That's the bit worst gameplay of the episode.
Yeah.
There's no harm, no, like people like kind of assume like, are the Bellow people still together but fractured, whatever. But like, no, you just be like, hey Katura, like that sucks that you got
Yeah.
that, like
Fish eyes.
let's wash that little tiny lick of a fisheye you took out with some cake, like
Yeah.
come on up here. Yeah, worst gameplay to Jake. I can't believe I didn't think I would be saying that. He had lots
Me
of good
neither.
gameplay, but
Yeah.
and that's not even really all that much of gameplay, but still was episode MVP. I think it's Jake without a doubt. I
Me
don't know
too.
how it can be anyone else.
No.
Yeah, obviously, one, he survived from the
Yeah.
gameplay aspect and entertainment wise. He was as strong of an MVP candidate as we've had on any episode all season long. So, are we in
Yes.
lockstep there?
We are.
All right. Well, then he's the MVP. And with that, we'll move to the power rankings and find out if we're in lockstep there as well. I believe last week we finally, for the first time, had the same top five, not
Yes.
exact order, but pretty close, but had the same five people. This week we're up in the ante. We're going full nine, all nine that are left, 1 through 9. And do you want to go first or second in the reveal here, Tony? I'll let you
I'll go
choose.
first.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, D is still in my number one spot,
Okay.
followed by Emily, and then Drew over Austin, Katura over Jake, Julie, then Kendra, then Bruce.
Okay. So say that one more time in
Sure.
order again.
So D, Emily, Drew, Austin, Katura, Jake, Julie, Kendra, Bruce.
Okay, fascinating. So we have the same bottom three. So
Yeah.
I think, and I kind of have a line if I were to do tiers instead of grouping. I would say Julie, Kendra, and Bruce are the only three I think are not going to win. I would say any of the six above them, I
So
could
I can,
see the
yeah.
path to them winning still, and I could totally see them from the editing standpoint, from every standpoint, being like any those six could win. I feel like Julie, Kendra, and Bruce, I'm pretty comfortable feeling like it's not going to happen. They might be final three, they might not, but I don't really see how they're going to pull off a win.
Julie's moves are too close to D's, and Kendra's moves are
And
too
Austin
close
and
to
Drew.
being a group.
It's not that
Yeah.
she has one person to get out of the way and then be like, now I can claim rights over this. It's that those four have done
Yeah.
everything together. And the one time they were split up, she was with, another one of them. And
Two of them.
so yeah. And then I think Kendra's just been like not really, she's voted in the right, she's 1 for 1, or no, she's 0 for
No.
1. 0 for 2
She's
kind of in
yeah,
voting
because
the right
she
people.
got Brando taken out from under her, and she got Kellie taken
Kellie,
out from
yeah.
under her.
Yeah. And then Bruce just, no one wants him there. So, uh, he might make it to the final three because of that reason, but I just don't think he can win. My top six were in not a very different order, but a slightly different order. I guess not that much different at all. Just I had D a lot lower. I had Emily, Drew, Austin, D. So
Okay.
you had D at the top, and then Emily, Drew, Austin. I had
Yep.
D below those three, and then Jake and Katura. I had flipped from you. I have Emily first. I think Emily's going to win. And then I think of Drew and Austin. I think Drew is in the better position now. The longer
Drew
this
can,
goes,
yeah. Drew can
the
explain it
better
better.
he can still claim ownership over everything they've done, but
Yeah.
less of a threat than the other one, which is like the ideal spot to be for me. But I still have both of them at the very, very top. I would love, love, love to see. It's not the smart thing to do, but I would love for them to actually go to the final three together and be like, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna backstab each other
Yeah.
and like figure it out. Obviously, that's not the right, that's not the appropriate thing to do, and they should not do that. And if they were in the final five together, they should try to get each other out. But it would be great to see it happen one day. And then I just think D, she's in an amazing spot, but I just think she's too powerful to, she's just gonna,
She's
be
gonna
the,
get Carla.
she's gonna be the Jesse. She's just gonna be that person. It happens every season. That is just when it gets somewhere between 7 and 10, someone becomes the odds on favorite, and that person has to then go out at like 4 or 5 in brutal fashion and everyone gets to say they played the best game. They were the best. They probably should have won, but they smartly got rid of them at the last second. And I feel like that's what D is destined for. And then Jake and Katura, they got work to do, but I could still see it happening. So that's the power rankings. As for some predictions and wishes, so what did we have on the next week on? We had that Emily wants D out. She's, taken over mastermind position here. We have all Jeff saying all three will lose their vote.
Yeah, which is
in
bullshit.
Reference to we don't know what.
There's 9 people left. You're taking a third of the votes away. Just let people play the fucking game.
Well,
That's
we don't
my
know.
second
It could
F-bomb, by
be
the way.
some like offer,
Yeah.
like if you want to do this thing or whatever, like go down this path, there's all three could lose their votes. And maybe that path isn't a guaranteed or anything. We will see. I will say though, as much as yes, that that makes me think something I don't like or not going to like is going to happen. I will say right now, there's 3 idols in the game. Austin has 2 of them,
Mhm.
but one of which, came from the very, very beginning. Bruce has one that came essentially was the very beginning idol that was then recycled back in and he got last second after the person with it went home. So in reality, they have toned down the advantages in a big way this season
But
from the last couple.
they've turned up the vote losing.
I think they've kept that the same. I wouldn't say they've really turned it up. I guess
Well, it
this one in the
depends.
auction was the first time, the first like
Yeah.
newish thing. Um, but otherwise they've kind of kept that the journey amounts of journeys and bewares the same and a chances to lose a vote. But as far as the actual advantages in the game, well, I mean, there's a few that have been used and or left the game because I guess does Drew still have his? I just have
No,
the
he had the
Survivor
goodwill.
wiki
He
in
had the
front of me.
goodwill that he gave to Austin so he could give up his
Oh yeah,
vote
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
supercharge his
Yep.
idol and then play the
Well,
thing.
no, Drew still has though the because he didn't have his bag
Oh
last
yeah,
episode.
he's still got the knowledge without power.
Yeah, so that's just not listed on the sheet that I have pulled up in front of me. So, but yeah, I think the point still stands. I think they have tried to dial 25% back on the idols and
Yeah.
advantages while they've maybe kept the losing votes at a place that you and I both aren't super fond of, but I will give
Oh,
them the little bit of credit that maybe we'll see if this turns next week, but
yeah.
that so far they've done a little bit better job of not being every week there's another idol, there's another advantage, there's another this, that, the other.
I mentioned last week about how I screwed up the numbers. So when season 44 was on, they left to start filming the episode before Matt didn't have his bag. So they wouldn't have seen that situation. They would have seen the previous seasons where the tribes were like swapped to a new beach for that portion of the game. So they wouldn't have necessarily seen a direct outcome of not bringing your bag. Um, and I believe it was Cassidy was on Why Blank Lost last week when they were talking about Sifu and Caleb. And before they used to say like bring all your stuff, like bring this and this, and now they say bring whatever you need for whatever. So it's
Yeah.
more vague now, but it's still like if you leave your bag, it's on you, but also if you leave your bag and then you get put at a different camp where you don't have access to the things that you've rightfully earned in the game, it kind of fucks your game. I guess that was 3 F-bombs from me this evening. But emotions are high.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was just something that I wanted to clarify, that 43 and 44 would have filmed together. Kellie was actually an alternate for 43, 43 or 44. I think 44 actually. And then she didn't get on that, went home, and then came back out for 45.
Oh
Because
wow.
usually if you're an alternate on one season and you don't get on, you generally do end up playing. Because I think Jay was an alternate a season or two before he ended up playing on Millennials versus Gen Xers as well.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, the final thing we'll do real quick then
Yeah.
is so obviously I want Kellie to play again. And so I would like a returnee season, second chances, some form or fashion of that. But
Mhm.
as I was thinking about it and thinking about what we've referenced a few times, that like, damn, like I know there's only 2 people on the jury, but like both of them should play again. That would be really fun. Have they on any of the returnee seasons before? Have they ever done like a season versus season or a season versus season versus season? Meaning, if they were to say it's a returnee season, it's a new era one, so there's 18, it's 3 tribes of 6, and each tribe is like one season. Like returnees
No,
from season 45 are a tribe, returnees from season whatever are a tribe, returnees from season whatever are a tribe, because that would be my pitch right
I'd
now
be for it.
because
Yeah.
in it, and I don't know where you would make the cutoff if it's like just anyone that didn't make final 3 or what, but this season would have a pretty incredible, and I think one like all fans would agree like we're good with seeing these 6 people coming back, Kellie and Caleb chief among them.
Yeah.
Season 43 in particular would obviously I think have a standout, like you're picking between just reading up the list, I guess if Owen and Cassidy aren't available, like Jesse, Carla, Cody, Sammy, Noel, Ryan,
Yeah.
Ellie, mainly Ellie, that I went back like that group of 6, you could get 3 women and 3 men very easily that you're like, I think everyone would be in agreement that we want to see all of those people. And then maybe you'd go back a little further to like a late 30s season that has a really standout one. But if you wanted to stay just new school, you could go right to 42 before and be like, Jonathan, Lindsay, Omer, Drea, Hai, and Tori, like
Yeah.
the
I would
6,
like,
the last
I,
6 removed before the final 3 of 42 makes a pretty incredible and compelling 6-person returnee cast. So yeah, I would like to see anything that gets Kellie back on the beach, and that would be a format I would be pretty interested in.
so I will say 100% on board with yours. I will also add one of the ones that I've been wanting is new era versus old era, and have like an assortment. You could even then you would have like your Kelly's and Caleb's and Jesse's and Carla's and Noel and everybody on a tribe together collectively. Bump the amount of days up to like 30 so that you're somewhere in the middle of the 26 versus 39, and then fill out the like the old school, like the old era with anybody like your fan favorites, the people who still want to play, like that sort of thing, the people who want to come back and show them like how it's done, for also play in the new era with the new era rules. And I'm thinking people like Davey or like Gabby or Victoria, like people like that would be game to come back. I think that would be a really compelling season 2, to have flat out new era versus old era.
How big are tribes in that situation?
I I would want
10?
like I would want 10 to 12 per tribe, and like 2 tribes, just do it normal. You don't need to do the swaps because you don't really want to like intermingle everyone. You want it to be like a true one against the other. And then like obviously still merge and everything like that. But I wouldn't be as keen to see a tribe swap. It's sort of like when they did Ride or Dies on the challenge and everybody was in partners and they're like, just kidding, 2 teams. And then they're like, just kidding, back to partners. I would rather just see like the 2 tribes and then they merge and then go for broke.
Yeah. Okay, well, those are our ideas, but one way or the other, please invite Kellie back. And I'm
Yes.
sorry that you lost Kellie, and I'm sorry that it's Bruce's fault, and I'll
Likewise.
blame him forever for that. That's Survivor 45, episode number 7, 8,
7?
7,
No, 8.
8, episode number 8. There it means there is what? So there's 9 people left, and
So
but
4 more episodes and then a finale?
yes, because
Because it's usually a
there's
5-person finale.
Yeah, it's a 5-person finale, and they're gonna finish the week before Christmas is on a Monday. So they are smart about their programming and when people watch TV and stuff, unlike other programs that shall not be mentioned right now that are horrible at their programming. And will run right through all of the holidays, right into the new
Golden
year.
Girls. The worst.
Golden Girls. Gilmore Girls. My wife is currently finally watching Gilmore Girls, like 20 years later.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so I think 5 weeks from this last Wednesday puts us the Wednesday before Christmas, which I believe will be when the finale is.
Cool.
So yeah, you've got a few more episodes left here of Tony and I breaking it all down. Any final words or other things to shout out, Tony?
No, I mean, like, I'm stoked that Jake's still in the game. It was a no-win scenario for me at that tribal because it was either going to be Jake or Kellie, and I adore both of them, and I would love to see both of them play again. I'm excited to see
play
how
again. Jake's about to win. What you don't act like he can't win. He could win.
He can win and play again. It happens. They do all-stars.
Okay, yeah, they could do winners and all-stars and stuff. He would definitely make an all-star roster, that's for sure.
There's one. We can just do new era all-stars.
He's surprisingly, we haven't discussed it yet, but as far we mentioned for the first time earlier, the first full season award. Emily was well in pole position for full season MVP, especially now that she's continued to stick around and now is in like a power spot.
Yeah.
Jake is the only one like closing ground on if someone can run down Emily and steal the season MVP from Emily. with respect to Drew and D, who are doing their thing and are very enjoyable, and respect to all of Katura's anti-Bruce confessionals, Emily was way out in front, but I think Jake in the last 2 episodes has really closed the gap and made this an actual competition
It's true.
for the full season MVP. Though I would say those two are definitely the odds-on favorites right now in my book.
Jake is the one that I can most relate to on a personal level. Like, I feel like I see so much of myself in Jake and how he's playing the game that I cannot help but absolutely root for him unequivocally.
Yeah. And even if you can't, he's very easy to root for. And he's
Yeah.
very, he's got a very likable position now of like,
Yes.
trying to play Survivor, as he keeps saying, is like, I don't want to just vote with everyone I want to play. And it's just not going his way. And
Yeah.
he continues to, in his own words, he's kind of sucking at Survivor the last couple of episodes, but he's still here and he's doing fantastic on the entertainment front. And we will see if he can start to do a little better on the Survivor front.
Yes.
But I'm confident no matter what, whether he goes home next week or wins, he will continue to do well on the entertainment front. So
Absolutely.
that's all we've got for you this week. Thanks as always for watching. Links in the show notes if you want to chat with either of us about Survivor, the challenge, anything. Go follow Challenge Fandom, subscribe to Challenge Historian here. And thank you all so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week, sometime between Thursday and Tuesday.
Have a good night.